Okay, today we're taking a look at Don Lawrence's Billy the Kid. This is released by Book Palace. They've done a really good job at releasing a bunch of older comic strips. And this is looking at Don Lawrence and his run on Billy the Kid. So now Billy the Kid itself, here they're saying it ran for about 7-8 years. And this is just covering the actual strips that Don Lawerence worked on here. So we have it all here, the issues he worked on. Now, I think he's best known for obviously working on Trigon Empire. He does beautiful art there, and he's doing some fantastic art here. So this is kind of a sample how it is. So again, where you're not getting the complete Billy the Kid run, you're just getting the parts that Don Lawrence and his wonderful art what he has performed for that there. And as you notice here, it ran a little bit in the Sun and then a little bit in the Lion. So we go back here to the table of contents. It ran weekly, wouldn't always have Don Lawrence doing the art. And so it ran in the Sun for a while and then in the Lion. And there's also kind of a nice little bonus with the Cowboy Picture Library, and I'll get to that in a bit. So most of these, when it was running weekly, there would be these kind of 4-page stories. So here, this 4 pages that completes a story, and then we have another one. So the character of Billy the Kid here that's his secret identity. So normally it's this local there in Gunsight is the name of the town in Texas where he's operating out of. And he never carries a gun. He's just kind of a local rancher named Will Bonney. But then when trouble happens, he goes off into his disguise, changes horses, and grabs his 6-shooters. So they have some very interesting stories, and the art is just fantastic. Now, as you can see, this is very different art than I think what Lawrence is best known for on his work in Trigon Empire, but the art here is just still fantastic. And you really don't see too many Western comics, at least these days. I think, it had its heyday when Westerns in general had their heyday. So it's really wonderful that Book Palace here is able to re-release these. But again, these are all kind of just standalone 4-page stories. So it's not a continuing, epic. You don't finish one week and then proceed into the next. You have the same reoccurring characters, but then it's a brand new story. So I felt it was a little difficult to just kind of blitz through. You couldn't just, read this book in its entirety in like 1 or 2 sittings. I would like to break it up. That's just kind of personally how I like to read when they're just kind of shorter stories. But, you read 1 or 2 a day. And I think that's kind of, again, it was designed to be read 1 story a week, and it's just going to get a little too samey if you just blitz through it, because part of each of these 4-page stories is Bonnie, changing into his secret identity and becoming Billy the Kid. So that gets a little repetitive if you just keep reading it story after story after story in the same sitting. But, you spread it out, and I think it really works well. And the stories, they're all pretty different, pretty interesting. It's just him changing into his secret identity, as always. If you keep doing it over and over again in the same sitting, it's going to get repetitive. But again, break it up. And that's how at least I like to read these stories. Because, there are all sorts of variety of good Western stories. And the characters are pretty classic. There's this guy who used to be a millionaire, and now he's broke, working in the town. There's lots of interactions with that. There's this owner of the hotel, Sally Merritt. She's a recurring character. So it's good, interesting stories done in the Western style, and the art's just fantastic. Now later on, it switches. So it's off the weekly, and then you have this one that ran in the picture library. Or here, you're only getting 1 or 2 panels per page, and it's kind of a much longer story. Runs a lot more pages because the panels are much bigger. You get a whole lot more dialogue per panel. It's probably about the same or maybe a little bit smaller amount of dialogue per page than when it was just the 4-page weekly. But you've got a much longer story. That's pretty interesting. So they can kind of develop it a bit more. I think that runs about 30 pages or so. And then so it kind of ends over here. Then we've also got 2 kind of bonus items by Don Lawerence. This is done kind of more in his painted Trigon Empire style. There's one on the Sea Raiders, kind of just on the Vikings. And that's well done. Again, just the art's beautiful, done in this kind of painted Trigon Empire style. And then there's a Viking one, including a story of going to America. And then there's the kind of Cheyenne Vengeance. This is a nice little story. It's following up from the Sand Creek Massacre, when Colonel Shivington, massacred those peaceful natives at Black Kettle. And then kind of what the Cheyennes did, to try and get revenge on that. Again, just beautiful, beautiful artwork, and is kind of a Western story. I mean, the Viking one's kind of out of place with the theme of the rest of the book, but I'm glad they included it, to just have, 2 of these kind of shorter stories. So you then have at the very end just kind of the covers that ran in the book, that Billy the Kid would run in. So it's nice to have that included. Just a really beautiful collection. So if you like Western comics, if you're a fan of Don Lawerence, even if you don't like Western comics, the art's fantastic. Again, the writing's actually quite solid, but again, it's short little bites. Most of it is just done in those 4-page stories. That may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I enjoyed it. If you spread out your reading and don't blitz it all at once, it's very enjoyable. Till next time.